Radio Show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV Radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Thank you for joining us. Today is December 21st, 2016. It's 8 o'clock in the morning on the Pacific Coast. And today I have with us a shamanic practitioner by the name of John MacKinnon. I wanted to bring him on. I know him personally, actually professionally. I guess he used to have a business that I helped him with, and we became friends. He's been my client for probably 15 years, and I knew that he did this, but I did not realize to what extent. We started talking, and I said, wow, I really want you on my radio show. So thank you, John, for joining us. I really appreciate your time here.
Thank you, Lonnie.
Yeah, it's amazing the serendipity of how all these years of working together, and I didn't realize that you were actually on this path. We talked about this. As we talked, let me just give you some background as to why I believe it's important for us to talk about this. As my intro says, happiness is resistance. We now live in the age of fission, and we have a choice. We are on the precipice of dramatic change. We are in the middle of dramatic change, in fact. Change that has been imposed upon us by people who really do view us as assets on their balance sheet. And in order for us as a species and as a planet to survive these basically psychopathic or sociopathic killers and genociders, we have to raise our own vibrational levels. So I just thought, as John and I were talking, he was talking to me about what he's doing. I thought it was very important for us to share these ideas with you. So welcome, John. Why don't you give us a little bit of background about what shamanism is? What does that mean?
Well, from a historical perspective, it's pretty much the oldest spiritual belief system known to man. When societies were far less complex, those who led by by the consent of the governed, so to speak. It was leading by your own merit, and there were social leaders and there were spiritual leaders, and the shamans were a very important member of society. It goes back to the cave paintings and so forth. We see evidence of people doing, 40,000 years ago, what we would refer to now as primitive cultures continue to do today. The practice has existed unbroken in a lot of societies, but unfortunately in Western society in particular, where societies became more complex, we were led more by despots, and shamanism was pretty much wiped out in a lot of a lot of countries, particularly in most of Europe.
And so by shamanism, do you mean like casting spells and things like that? Or what are you talking about when you're saying shamanism?
Well, when I refer to shamanism, generally what I'm referring to is what we know in the West today as core shamanism, the central beliefs that are common to many different shamanic cultures. In some shamanic cultures, a shaman is what a lot of people picture when they think of a medicine man or a witch doctor given to us by Hollywood. But they are much more than just that. In different cultures, there are very specific ways that a shaman interacts with the spirit realm and with their society. But Michael Harner, who is the founder of the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, the real center of shamanism in the Western culture, he has spent a good deal of his life studying these cultures and seeing what the commonalities are. As he began as an anthropologist, and what really struck him was how in these cultures they didn't just know about medicines and so forth, from an herbal perspective, but they practiced shamanism in a way that really seemed to have a profound effect on the health and well-being of the communities that he was working with. As a scientist, he was very interested in that, and that's what started him on his path.
And who was that again?
Michael Harner.
Okay.
Yes, he was and continues to be, although he's retired now, an anthropologist in California. He worked primarily in the Amazon jungle with the Jivaro people, the Konibo, several of the Amazon tribes there that still have shamanism as a very central part of their culture. One thing that a lot of people think of when they think of the Amazon is psychoactive plants, and Michael did study the effect of that as being, how the shamans and the people in these particular societies interacted with the spirit world. But his later work led him to the fact that most shamanic cultures do not rely on psychoactive substances to achieve this shamanic state of consciousness. They use rather sonic driving, usually by a drum or rattle, which is a monotonous background sound that is very useful in reaching certain states of consciousness, which Western science would call, theta states and things like that. There's science behind a lot of what takes place on a shaman's journey. And I suppose I should and what a journey is.
I know that the drum thing, a lot of people relate that to the Tibetans and the Eastern ideas where they do use chanting and that whole sound to get you to that state. So what you're saying is that that most shamanic cultures did not use because really one of the things when people do think of it, especially today, is the ayahuasca that comes out of Peru. It's actually made its way into mainstream. Like I know people here in Portland say that they have, religious circles using this, and I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know if you can take it out of the context of being in the Amazon and have it be real.
That is an extremely good point, because it's my sincere belief that ayahuasca should never come out of the jungle. It is a very strong spiritual teacher in its proper setting, with the proper rituals and traditions that have risen up around it over the course of a very, very long time. People who drink ayahuasca 3 or 4 times and then come to the United States and call themselves an ayahuasquero, in my opinion, are on a very slippery slope.
Me too. That's how I feel. I mean, when I met them, they weren't bad people, but it seemed to me like, and I said this to them directly, you can't go into the jungle for 2 months and call yourself a shaman. Sorry. No. You can't come out in like 2 months and be a shaman. That's just not how. It's like going to church and saying you're the preacher after 2 months.
That's about it. Yeah. In 2 months, a lot of things can happen in 2 months, but one thing I also feel very strongly about is a lot of shamans do, is that you don't call yourself a shaman anyway. you are, if you have those abilities, you're recognized by the people that you serve, and they can call you that. It's an honorific. People who do this kind of work intentionally, at least in the West, call themselves shamanic practitioners. We use shamanic techniques to intercede with the spirit realm to try to affect positive outcomes. People who do it for their own self-interest are known by other names, particularly in the Amazon. They would call them brujos or sorcerers. And that those people were feared and respected, but they were not the ones that you would go to restore harmony in your life. There would be people you would go to do something bad to an enemy.
Okay, so let me pick up on that phrase. You said you go to a shaman to restore harmony in your life. Is that the purpose of shamanism?
If you take a broken leg to a shaman, he might be able to help you ease your pain, but he's not going to set the bone. You want to go to a bone setter for that. You don't call an electrician for a leaky pipe. Shamans, their purpose is to interact with spirit on your behalf. So the most effective areas are for emotional issues, for distress that is difficult to identify, medically. Some shamans also do work with herbal remedies and so forth, or even I personally know some Western shamans that are also therapists or physical therapists here, physio in Canada, and they use the techniques together to bring healing.
So what defines a shaman? Like, what do you do to become a shaman? What defines a shaman? How does that journey begin? I mean, what is that?
Traditionally, in a lot of cultures, shamans are identified at a very young age. They are somehow different, and they would be identified probably by the village shaman and perhaps brought up in training with them. Oftentimes, people feel called to it by a lot of times people are recovering from a serious illness or disease or an addiction. Oftentimes are what we call the wounded healers, and they're people who are drawn to a spiritual life because of part of their recovery and their reentry into the world. That's a very important part of shamanism and a lot of other traditions is this sensation of death and resurrection, of being reborn into a new consciousness in life. A lot of religions have a very similar process that takes place. Organizations like the Freemasons even have recognized the importance of letting an aspect of yourself die and be born again into a greater awareness of light and things. I don't know if I'm getting a little too esoteric here.
That's all right. I mean, this is the thing. We're living in a time where really we need to stretch our understandings because the reality of the environmental catastrophe is stretching our capacity to maintain just life on our planet. So we have big brains. This is why I appreciated the idea that we could talk about this. We don't use most of the gray matter on top of our heads. And I think if we press ourselves, we can actually expand. We're coming into a time where either we have a very short period of time on this planet, or we're going to create some pretty amazing solutions and get rid of the psychopaths. We're going to either come into a transformation of enlightenment or it's over with. I believe that's, I don't know. So I think this idea of shamanism is very important. Like this whole aspect of opening ourselves up to being able to spiritually be trained and be helped. And I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Like what we've done before hasn't worked, obviously. It's actually created the problem.
And I'm in complete agreement that major changes are at hand. There are religious traditions that look at it one way, and there are political activists and social activists that look at it another way. And from a shamanic perspective, the term New Age gives me the willies a little bit. But there have been awakenings that people have been experiencing that are leading to a lot more consciousness of us as a community of human beings that is at a real crossroads. And shamanism, to try to put it into that context, is at least in you know, the way that a lot of the people I know are approaching it, is that we don't only respond to people who are seeking help for themselves, but we also are committing more and more of our intention and our awareness to the global situation and you know the place that we find ourselves right now. It's not just the Western shamans that are you know, recognizing how technology is hurting us spiritually and affecting us, but there are groups. There's a group of Mongolian shamans, for instance, right now that are organizing and really crying out because they feel that the earth is really demanding attention, and they feel that it's the earth herself is being attacked by people. And this is a country.
It's true. It is. I mean, it's especially like what's going on in Fukushima. It's being burned. I mean, it is literally being burned into the earth. It's like I do not recall who this was I was talking to yesterday, but I think it was Jose. We were talking about how the earth is being burned from Fukushima because the radioactive contamination of Fukushima is burning into the earth and into the sky, into the air. It's not like radioactivity from the sun, the radiation from the sun that we can handle, that we're used to, that the earth that nurtures the earth. It really is literally being scalded by Fukushima.
Yes,
literally.
And hopefully that was you and I that were having that discussion yesterday.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That's how many people I talked to, John.
Right, yeah. I was talking about how through one shamanic experience, I got the lesson about fire. Very, very elemental and basic. A lot of people will experience things like this in their learning, where if you're sitting at a campfire and you're watching a log burn, the light that you're seeing and the heat that you're feeling is actually the sun's light and heat that never reached the surface of the earth. It was intercepted by the leaf of the plant and transmitted into the body of the plant, which lived and died. And when you burn it, you're re-releasing that energy of the sun, and that's what you're experiencing. The light and the heat is the sun's light and heat. Now, Fukushima, or any time that we have fission, we're not burning something that is re-releasing the sun's light. We're burning starfire. We're burning the earth itself. The earth, the stones and the uranium, the minerals of the earth are, were created in explosions of stars. And I think I was relating to you a shamanic experience I had where I was given this lesson about this nuclear heat and this radiation from earth burning is very different, and it's a much more distant ancestor from us than the sun is. Let's put it that way. And it is way out of the natural order. The suffering and hardship that we have seen people experience through nuclear war and through nuclear accidents.
And contamination,
and then turn around and go on life as usual. We are receiving very, very clear messages that there's something very wrong here. Mm-hmm. And their social activists are very important. They serve a really important role. Getting angry serves a certain role, but not a terribly effective one. But
thank you. I know that.
Yeah. Well, right in your intro, you said that love is stronger than fear. Well, one thing is certain: they can't both exist in the same place and time. And if you're going to choose one, which one do you want?
That's awesome. That's a great point, John. Thank you. That's actually true. They cannot exist in the same space.
Right, and that's where we need healers, whether they be shamans, whether they be priests, whether they be I however you're called to the work of being on the right side, in the side of light rather than the side of darkness. That's where we really need to be. Leaving it for others has been done for a long time, and it hasn't really served the purpose. So the more healers that we get from the rank and file, not only healing each other, but working together to live in the possibility of healing the earth herself, the better off we're all going to be.
Wow. That's actually very insightful. You can tell that I sort of incorporated your concept yesterday very deeply. I think that identify with that. I think that's a really good idea. That's a really good point, that the earth is being burned. It's being scalded. So
Right.
when did you have this dream? When did this happen to you?
Well,
And how did it happen?
let me try to very briefly describe what it is a shaman does.
Okay.
In the very physical. I'm going to concentrate on core shamanism as it's taught and understood by the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, which I'm a member of and a very big fan of also. The shamanic journey is assisted by the sound of a drum. The drum is usually a hand drum, and it's beaten at a rate of about 200 beats per minute, which is very common through many cultures, and scientifically shown to be probably the most effective for assisting someone to go into a deeply relaxed state. So the shaman will envision in their mind a particular place of beginning, where they begin their journey from. Oftentimes, it's an opening into the earth, and they enter that opening and travel through a tunnel to what is referred to as the lower realm, or it could be a high point at the top of a tree or a mountain or something like that, where they ascend to what is referred to as the upper realm. Without getting a whole lot into dogma, because the Foundation tries to minimize dogma as much as possible. You do begin.
Wait a minute. Wait, say that again.
The Foundation tries to minimize the dogma as far as naming, the various realms that you travel to and what you're supposed to expect, because everyone will experience what they experience, and all of those experiences are valid. They do give some guidelines that a lot of cultures use to assist people in having a successful journey. So this journey is much like a dream, but you're not asleep. It is many people, when they begin, wonder if it's something that they're creating out of their own mind and so forth. It's not important whether that's so or not. Most people, once they relax into it and begin to journey successfully, recognize that there is something much greater than they can really explain going on, and think about it too much takes away from the experience. You pay attention to what you see in your journeys, and if you're journeying on behalf of a client or a patient, you have the intention of seeking advice or teaching from a compassionate, helping spirit to assist you in solving this conflict or resolving it somehow. Sometimes shamans will go for gaining knowledge, and they do this on what's called the journey. And the whole time that they're journeying, this drum beating is going on. Sometimes it's by another, or if you practice long enough, you can journey while you drum yourself. So I think it's just kind of important to define that part of what a shaman does. To go into specifics again is counterproductive in describing the journeys.
Okay.
And after a certain amount of time, the drum beat will change. It's called the callback. And then you intentionally return to the place that you began. There are reasons for that.
How long does this take? Like, what's the period of time that all that whole process will happen?
When you're doing it for instruction with other people, you generally keep it somewhere between 15 and 45 minutes, depending on what they're trying to accomplish. Sometimes the drum will kind of almost force you to change the cadence when the time is right for a return. When journeying yourself, if you're doing it yourself, you're in charge of the drum. At some level, and you can just go until your mission is accomplished. Or if you're drumming with someone else, you're just working individually, the drumming can go on for a very long time. But seldom it's necessary to be, more than 45 minutes to an hour, because time really kind of loses its meaning for the journeyer. Sometimes it seems like you're gone for days. Sometimes it seems like you're gone only for minutes.
Well, just ask anybody who's ever meditated. That's kind of how it feels. It's like all of a sudden you can't tell how long the time was. Yeah.
And there are similar things going on when a person is putting themselves in a state of spiritual openness, regardless whether it's through meditation or journeying or whatever. I think that in most cases, something very important takes place that does not take place in normal consciousness. And the benefit is definitely to the journeyer, the shaman or the meditator, but also that benefit is realized by others, whether if you're journeying on behalf of someone else, or if you come back with a teaching that you can apply to the world or to your life. That's a gift. How else would you get that awareness? So
So John, let me ask you this. This is a kind of off the beat question on this idea about shamanism, but this idea, especially I've noticed myself and people around me that are actively attempting to make a positive change on our planet. Many of us are compelled to sing or to communicate harmonically. You know what I mean? Does that, on an intuitive basis, is that sort of, because what I hear you say is the drum beat, it's that harmonic, the tone of the beating and the rhythm of it that brings you into this, it's kind of like a controlled sound experience, right? So it's kind of the same that happens when we're singing, right? We create this sort of, I don't know if you've ever sung for more than a minute or two, but when you're singing for 15, 20 minutes, after a little while, you really get in a different headspace, and all of a sudden you're in this place where time moves differently. Is that sort of the same strain?
It absolutely is, and that is, and at some level, would be recognized by shamans as a journey, a type of journey.
Oh, okay.
Chanting is used. I refer to the drum because it's the most common device that shamans use worldwide in the time. But chanting also. Some cultures just click sticks together, and that stick sound.
Right.
Everyone I think is familiar with rattling, both musically and percussion in general.
Well, look what they're doing in the water protectors, that constant drum. They're like moving and chanting, constantly praying, chanting, moving. All of that, I actually really believe that's creating a positive energy out there. Like it's really actually creating a vibrational change in how things are happening.
It absolutely is. Yeah, no doubt.
Huh. This is so fascinating because this is like a resurgence. I mean, humanity is hungry for spirituality. We're hungry to reconnect with our Mother Earth, with our roots, our planet, our people. And this concept that having thrown ourselves off the cliff with radioactive contamination. I mean, that's essentially, I said this a few years ago, we're in a barrel. We're off Niagara Falls in a barrel. We have not hit rock bottom. And humanity really, really is getting, I think, on, even though people don't want to talk about radioactive contamination, they are willing to talk about the water, which is interesting because we have these water protectors. Ironically, that water that they're protecting is full of tritium. You know what I mean? It's already contaminated. So a little late for that story, but I don't think it's ever. Let me ask you this: as a shaman through your journeys, do you think that it is really ever too late? Like Guy McPherson is saying, we have 10 years left. He's recalculated. He used to say we had 30 years, 30 to 50. That was 2 or 3 years ago when he sort of quit his job at a university and said, "Oh my God, we're really seriously harmed because of Fukushima." I heard him last week say, "We've got 10 years left. Humanity is going to start, dying in massive amounts in less than 10 years. In 10 years, we're going to be completely done." Do you think that that is the belief in our projection back to shamanism and our projection back to like connecting with the earth? I mean, have we had visions of this from shamans who say that we will actually be able to survive what's the onslaught of what's coming?
I think any honest seer can only say this may come to pass. And also what is your definition of it being all over? Is it, an anthrocentric view where mankind is done for?
Well, all the mammal species, I mean, the species of love, all the mammal species are species of love, right? And I think that's our gift that our planet has is love. That's our gift to the universe. That's my intuitive sense about it. And I think that's why the genociders have gone after. That's why this whole concept of love is greater than fear. They want us to live in fear so that we don't create more love, because love is self-creating, just like hate is self-creating.
Right. And love is more akin to things like direct revelation and personal experience than fear is. Fear shuts you down. And that's why they like to keep people in fear, those in power, because that way you are more orderly.
Right.
Think of the early church in Europe, and the pagan communities that they overran. A lot of these pagan communities were small but successful, functional, in balance, but it's hard to control people like that. So you have to come in and force them to accept that if they don't get in line with the party the party platform, that they're in for hellfire and damnation. And those who speak about love and direct revelation, they just have to be wiped out. And that's it might sound oversimplified, but this actually happened in Europe. The witch trials. We talk about Salem here in the United States. It was nothing compared to the people who were eradicated in Europe that were practicing,
True.
Shamanism or just practicing other religions that did not require a central authority. And I'm not faulting any spiritual person in an organized church, but I am faulting that methodology that the powerful have to control others. Whether it's a church or a country or a PTA meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Leading with an iron fist and going down that route of fear rather than love.
That is exactly what an EPA meeting is like. They look at you, they do rule you with an iron fist. That's really quite insightful of you to say that. John, we have about 20 minutes left, 25 minutes left. I'd really like you to share with people your website and your current activities, because they could go to your website, learn a lot, and maybe get engaged with some of the activities that you're involved with. So why don't you share some of that information?
Okay. Well, I'm currently in a 3-year training program that's offered by the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, and I'm with a group of 40 plus people who will be all together for this 3 years, and as we work together, as is natural, certain people tend to gravitate toward one another and work together. And this woman from France I met, who goes by the name Nanook. We have a lot of people have names that they use in their shamanic practices, and mine is Crow, like the black bird. So we got together and decided that we had a vision that we shared to help people who practice shamanism meet other groups of shamans in other parts of the world, kind of as a cultural exchange, to kind of get some sense of globalizing the spiritual healing community for the larger purposes of healing the earth, healing the ills of society. That there are people out there trying to do specific things, but the people who are just working behind the spiritual energy behind that are people like us, and we know that they're all over. So we formed this organization called Shamanic Voyages, and it's primarily for people who have some level of shamanic training to take these trips to meet other shamans. We have a website that we just launched less than a month ago, called shamanicvoyages.com, and I just want to call up my mission statement. I think I read it to you a little earlier, or our vision. This is our vision statement, and it reads: "We believe that all things are imbued with spirit, every person, animal, plant, and stone. It is the shaman's path to enter into a deep relationship with the spiritual realm for the purpose of relieving suffering, restoring harmony, and gaining wisdom. There are many ways that spirit manifests itself to those who seek it. We believe that opening ourselves to the understanding of how other peoples and cultures encounter and interact with the spirit realm can inform and enrich our own experience. When we can recognize the commonalities that we share with others, we can work more effectively together for the common aim of global healing." So that's our vision statement.
The common aim of global healing.
Yes. Yep.
That's a good phrase. The common aim of global healing, because that's really what we must. I mean, I believe every adult needs to be focused on that, because we have a responsibility. Now that we're aware, see, you and I are of that generation where we really for a long time believed that it wasn't that bad. Like you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it was bad, it was corrupt, but it's at a certain level that they weren't intentionally destroying all of our ecosystems, and actually they are. Like, it's real. It's not a game. Like, they literally have thrown. We haven't entered into World War III. We are in World War III. It's happening since World War II never really ended. Like, the amount of nuclear weapons that they lied to us so dramatically about the negative effects of radioactivity and radioactive contamination when they did all those bombings in the 50s and 60s and all that stuff that they did. And they've just recklessly continued to just destroy our planet. So we definitely need global healing,
Yeah. It's all about mindfulness, and every single person, like you said, every single adult can take part by being mindful about not only thinking about these things, but also, what are they doing? They're generating energy, and they're, for the purpose of selling it. It's money is behind it all. Do we leave our lights on? Do we do everything that we can to really try to conserve the energy that is being produced? Because if we weren't so hungry for it, they wouldn't find it so profitable. Getting a cup of coffee. I'm mindful when I get a cup of coffee out, and I have this paper cup with a plastic lid on the top. I wouldn't go so far as to say that I feel guilty, but I feel responsible. I just took part in the waste stream, and it wasn't necessary.
Mm-hmm.
If we're mindful in small things.
Exactly. Well, it's like, don't paper towels, like a simple thing of just, you don't need to use paper towels. It's a complete waste of life, actually, to a paper towel. It's a one-time, or even a straw. Like, I've stopped using straws. I bought some metal straws because we like straws. It's a cool little thing to have. But when you think about it, it's a one-time use piece of plastic that goes out there. That's something we can control. It's one thing when we buy a product and it comes with plastic, but to buy a piece of plastic to use for one time is just, to me, it is mindfulness. So small drops, every drop in the bucket fills the cup,
Exactly. And the earth is dying by 1,000 paper cuts. So each one small insult that we can remove from that process will start to turn things around.
And also it also will end those corporations, like the Koch brothers, they own most of the paper towels, the paper towel companies, a lot of even the generic ones, they own that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't buy a paper towel, you're not supporting the Koch brothers.
Right. And we if we want to talk about boycotts, we're going to have to set aside a separate show for that. Because
okay.
Yeah, I do that a lot, and it's about mindfulness. It's not just about getting even with the bad guy. These people are, if they could make a fortune on producing solar panels in a clear way, they would do that. I don't think they're doing it just because it's bad. They're doing it because they're after money. They are, it's an illness, I guess. But they don't care about the means to their end. Their end is to get wealthy. So if we don't make it easy for them to get wealthy, then they're going to find another way. And hopefully, if there is enough mindfulness and intention in the world for good, lack of a better word for it, there is going to be a shift. And those who feel that they must earn money are going to be, in a position to find ways that we want them to give us something that we would like to buy. I don't know if I'm being clear, but yeah, we all have a part in it. The bad guys are the bad guys, but we're not in control of them. We're in control of ourselves.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And the fact is, the more we fear them, the more power we give them. And the more we acquiesce to their concepts, the more we give power to them. Like this idea of unlimited waste, it doesn't matter. We have a right to as much electricity as we want. You can use plastic. Plastic's not a bad thing. I mean, the whole oil, the whole thing is so off kilter, antithetical to living. It's unbelievable. And what's shocking for me, and I have to admit this myself, is that it took me, 57 years or something like that, 55 years. I didn't even really think that Fukushima was that bad. When the president told me everything was great, I wanted to stay in my comfort zone and went, wow, thank God President Obama is our president now. Things would be really terrible if somebody else was in office. Do you know what I mean? Like, my own set of biases helped me to be oblivious for over a year until I had a nightmare that woke me up. That's what got me going, John, was a nightmare.
Yeah, yep.
And so that was my spirit self talking to me, going, hey, wake up, man.
Yeah, and in shamanic dream work, which is one of the minor specialties that the foundation offers help in learning about, that's what you'll do is you will go back to a dream that you woke up from. When we're dreaming, a lot of times the fear will wake us right up out of the dream. We don't want it to go on anymore. But a lot of times that is spirit getting our attention about something very important. And if we go back to that dream, to the place where it left off, and continue it mindfully, feeling protected by the compassionate spirits that we work with, a lot of times there's a really great learning in that.
Wow. So maybe I should work at that. Maybe that's something that I should actually decide to focus on, because that dream is still, this dream happened on May 5th, 2012. I remember the date, John, and it woke me up, and it is still vivid in my mind to this day.
That's what we call a big dream. And I encourage you to see what it's holding there for you.
Okay.
If I can take just a second, I would like to let people know about the Foundation for Shamanic Studies.
Please
if you're interested in more about them, they can be found at shamanism.org on the internet, and there has their mission statement, the things that they're doing, what membership is about, and what the foundation is trying to accomplish. Their mission, as well as being an educational institution is also to go to indigenous communities where shamanism is dying out and helping to keep it alive, particularly without changing its nature any more than is necessary. There are places where the last shaman has died, and people were instructed in core shamanism, and they're redeveloping their own cultural flavors. And this is really important work, I feel. And the foundation works all over the world. In fact, they just recently hosted some Mongolians in California, where they're headquartered.
I'll ask the director to put the link in our podcast today.
Yeah, really great. If anybody has any interest whatsoever, I'd say that is the go-to place. And those of us who are called to learning more do it on our own. Myself, I've traveled to the Amazon. I'm going to Mongolia next summer with Shamanic Voyages, and I've worked with shamans, other shamans here in the United States.
Shamanic Voyages.
Yes, shamanicvoyages.com is ours again. I highly encourage people to explore it further. You don't have to dedicate your life to it, but it's every life has room to bring a little of this work into it.
Wow. Okay. This is such an amazing topic, John. I am, for some reason, I'm really riveted to it, because I think, we in the Western world really rely on science to carry us through. Like Guy McPherson's telling us that, we've got 10 years, but that's based on current science, based on everything that we know heretofore have accepted as current science. But really, that doesn't mean that there aren't answers that aren't being suppressed, or B, that we may not, that there's solutions that can come up in the next few years that can just fundamentally change things and reverse the course. I mean, we've had 100 years, essentially, 100, 150 years since industrialization, of just beginning to rape and pillage the planet. But I don't know, intuitively, maybe it's my human spirit. I don't want to give up. I don't want to give up and just go, yeah, live your life. We've only got 10 years. I mean, I'm going to go down swinging.
Yep. And this is, it may just be life as we know it, maybe over. And who knows, maybe on the other side, it's not a dystopian future. Maybe it will be better. I personally feel that, spirit will persist. Whether human beings will be quite the same, or whether we'll be present, is still a question unanswered. But I know that we're not as big as we think we are.
Yeah. So this website that you are part of is called sacredvoyages.com.
Oh no, Shamanic Voyages.
Shamanicvoyages.com. Okay.
Yeah, and it's still a new website. We don't have anything on our blog yet, but we do have our first trip posted, and our mission statement, a little bit about Nanook, a little bit about myself as facilitators, and we fully expect it to continue. Our next trip after Mongolia, probably about a year from now, we'll probably go back down to Peru. I have some very dear friends down there that are shamans, and we will be working with them and with some of the indigenous communities there, and there'll also be a little bit of Machu Picchu and the fun stuff as well, to make it
Machu Picchu. Have you been to Machu Picchu?
Yes, yeah. It's a magical place. Really is, and it's one of many. This is one that is being operated as a federal park, basically. But there are many very similar centers, civic centers from hundreds of years ago that are still out there in the mountains.
What do you think of Chaco Canyon? That's our own. Like, I've been to Chaco Canyon here in the States. Do you know about that?
Yes, not just Chaco Canyon, but there are similar places all over the Four Corners region, and the Dene call them the ancient ones, the Anasazi, or our ancient enemy, I guess is the actual translation from the Navajo. But Yeah, it clearly was a civilization that was more advanced than the Europeans who brought the disease here that wiped everybody out. Um, but they had their own crisis and they disappeared, but life continued. So
Yeah, and that's the point of it all, isn't it? Life continues.
it does, and hopefully there is enough spiritual consciousness to carry us as spiritual beings through the change,
I
hopefully.
actually believe there is. Obviously, that's what propels me to do this radio show in the face of, let's face it, UCY.TV is a burgeoning, brand new baby show in terms of the whole picture. We don't have the financial backing. We're an internet radio show, but I really believe that our venue and this particular station has there are some shows on this station that you cannot hear anywhere else. Information that you will get that can actually lead us out of the darkness, which is why they matter.
Yep.
We have the Geoengineering Watch show with Dane Wigington. The Jules, right before my show, 5 days a week, does Before the First Cup, and she exposes a lot of the megalithic, idiotic scientific lies. So, and there's other shows, like we have a lady on that does the Flying Lasagna. She talks about our spiritual path as well. So I would encourage people to really take a look and peruse um, the different programs on this radio station, because honestly, when I found it 2 years ago, I was like, wow, it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's like this island of people bringing real facts and truths.
And you cannot underestimate the importance of a single voice either. The Buddha did not preach to crowds. He was a quiet voice. And
exactly right. Buddha did not preach to crowds. And actually, you know what? Neither did really Jesus Christ most of the time. There was a few times inside the Bible they talk about it, but there was never really like big, most of the time he was ridiculed,
Well,
so
it's important to speak truth, and that's what the great spiritual leaders have always tried to do, and socially, it's really important to do what you're doing and not be too concerned about getting funding from the Koch brothers to do it.
Yeah, I don't think we would actually accept funding from the Koch brothers. I wouldn't. I know I wouldn't. You know what I mean?
I don't think PBS would either, but they do now.
This is the thing, though, in this anti-nuclear fight, John, this is an interesting thing, maybe from a shamanic point of view. It's kind of a big question, so we may not get a full answer. Hopefully the next time you come on, we can talk about it. One of the things I find most frustrating is it's almost like a circular firing squad that goes on among the anti-nuke activities. There's all these different organizations in every little pocket of town. When I first started this, I teamed up with Kevin Blanche with the Post Ignorance Project. I really did not believe there was that. I didn't hear them because the media suppresses it. But there's really like no cohesive unit of we're going to be all on the same team. There's people attacking each other because they think they're not saying the right truth. Nobody, there's the scientists aren't speaking out vociferously enough. And in the meantime, the polluters and the people that are harming everybody, they're laughing all the way to the bank while their people are dropping off like flies. Like even in St. Louis, where their children are, catastrophically ill. They go to these EPA meetings, and yet there's, they don't really, they don't want to tiptoes on the steps of the government too hard. They don't want to like protest because they're afraid the government won't really help them. Well, the government's not helping them anyways. They're still living next door to a nuclear burning dump site, essentially. It's on fire. One lady's house has 1,000 CPMs per minute in her house. She's still living there.
Oh, gosh, no.
Do you get what I'm saying? Like, what is it about the human? Where have we come as a cult? Like, it's us. I think myself, I have this intuitive sense that it's about people want peace. They want their little pattern of life, no matter how horrible it is. So they'll just allow it until it gets so catastrophic they can't even think. Is that the point of shamanism, to bring us back and out of that pattern?
Well, the purpose of shamanism is help. Well, at least from my perspective, as I see shamanism working for global healing, is to restore harmony. First, as an individual, then as a community, and then globally. And it has to work like a wave outward like that, because when you were talking about there not being cohesiveness in the resistance, if there were cohesiveness in the fight, just as a social fight, the head can be removed really easily. It's happened time and time again. And they can, the stronger can always wipe them out. But if everyone raises their consciousness to the point where, the cohesion is there, then the movement is more like a wave rather than a sphere.
Be like the tsunami, exactly.
Yeah,
That's what I tell people. We're like the tsunami. We're still coming in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and we saw what the tsunami did over at Fukushima.
Right.
The outfall from that was tragic, but at the same time, the Earth does have a way of scratching itself from time to time, and a lot of times people do suffer the consequences of the Earth reacting to the insults we give it, against her. You can almost see these power plants as being boils on the Earth's skin, and one way or another, the Earth will survive. I just hope that we survive with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you read this book called The Canticles of Leibowitz?
Oh, I don't know. You're the first person I know who's read that book besides myself. I love that book.
Yeah. Well, if anybody hasn't read it, it's an old book. I don't even know if it's still in print, but it is really something to be read because it talks about what life will be like in, how many years in the future. I read it a long time ago, but it's kind of the aftermath of like us surviving what we've done to the earth. And it was I read that book really in my 20s and I'm 60. So that's how old it is. I mean, it's
probably when I read it, it was probably early in its publication back then. Yeah, that was before the dystopian, novel was really a real mainstream thing. Yeah, that had the Wandering Jew that.
It was really an amazing book, actually. I've looked for it, and it's a pretty amazing book. Well, look, John, we have about a minute and a half left. I would encourage people to go to John's page called shamanicvoyages.com. Take a look at what they're doing, the journeys they are planning, and see if this is something that you may want to engage in yourself. If you have more interest in understanding what shamanism is, you can go to the Foundation for Shamanic Practices, I think that's what it's called, at shamanism.org. I was actually, Jules is going to put this in our podcast, both of those links, so that people can find out more information.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Lonnie. It was really nice to be able to talk with you about this. Well,
I certainly hope you return, because really, my cup is even half full on attempting to get some of this information and understanding it. Put your courage feet on, you guys. Take some action. There is hope in the future. Love is greater than fear. Happiness is resistance. Let's keep that in our mind. Thank you, John, for joining us. We'll talk with you guys tomorrow.